Greetings nerdy list aficionados and welcome back to Top 10 Nerd. Today we're looking at supervillains who aren't satisfied with just stealing money. Oh no, they need to steal people's powers. Superhero powers specifically. Now this can be for a number of reasons. Maybe you can just want that specific person's power set, or maybe it's to discredit them, or just cause they can. I'm Sasha and these are the top 10 supervillains who stole their superpowers. Number 10. Parasite. It's all in the name. This isn't even something the Parasite could stop even if he wanted to. Now there have been several Parasites, but they all have the same power set. The first version appeared in Action Comics number 340 in 1966. It varies whether or not the creature needs to absorb energy to survive, or whether it is simply to accent abilities it already possesses. But Parasite is well known for absorbing Superman's powers. By touching the Man of Steel, this drains him and then allows Parasite to become even more dangerous than before. Most are familiar with the post-crisis Parasite, Rudy Jones, and the monstrousness of his appearance was definitely ramped up. The thing is, this drain is temporary, so to keep it up, the Parasite must be able to renew his connection to the energy source. In the Superman TAS series from the 90s, the Parasite first appeared in the episode Feeding Time, and there was able to kidnap Superman for a time and keep him chained so that he could return to feed from him periodically. This was until Superman finally managed to escape, even without powers. Parasite is not going anywhere anytime soon. Simple concept and design, but it really works. Number 9. Rogue. Rogue is going low on this list because she's been on the side of good for decades now. Her villainy is well in the past. However, when she was still with the Brotherhood, she performed one of her most infamous actions. That being the draining of Ms. Marvel's powers to the point that Carol was rendered comatose, and Rogue permanently gained her powers of flight and super strength. This was the event that changed Rogue's life and turned her away from the path of darkness and led her to the X-Men. Plus there was some manipulation from Mastermind in there as well. Rogue's very powers are a constant reminder of what she absorbed from Carol. It took her years to get back on her feet after awakening from her coma. It would also be a large contributing factor to her alcoholism, and Carol would hold the grudge for some time, which makes sense, till it suddenly just vanished. I don't know, sisterhood. Number 8. Circe steals Wonder Woman's powers. Circe first debuted in Wonder Woman Volume 1 number 37 in 1949. So post-crisis, what was with these two's beef? Circe is empowered by the soul of Hecate, and she is convinced that a cryptic prophecy means that Hecate will transfer her powers and hence Circe's to Diana, as Hecate was the goddess of the moon and Diana shares the name of the moon goddess. The thing is, Diana doesn't want Hecate's soul at all. So when did she take Wonder Woman's powers? Well, Circe stole them in the 1 year later storyline, saying that she was going to avenge wronged women since Diana had no interest in doing so. She completes a spell to give her the powers and proceeds to go out and about as Wonder Woman. She mostly kills slave traders. This was brief and was mainly an excuse to draw her in the costume more than anything else. But it made you wonder, she stole those powers pretty handily. I feel like she's holding back on us. How do you feel about Wonder Woman's rogues gallery in general? Let me know. Number 7. Sebastian Shaw. So Sebastian Shaw can absorb kinetic and thermal energy and channel it back at the person or just use it to augment his own strength and stamina. So this is a bit different than your standard yoink and use power swap, but it can still leave the opponent drained, and Shaw significantly more powerful. His very base power involves a drain on others, and he likes to test the limits of his abilities, see how much he can absorb and what he can withstand, and the more he absorbs, the more damage he can take. If we get enough power, he can manifest it as a sword and use this energy sword in battle. That isn't every time. It's a supercharged kind of thing. Number 6. Spider-Man and Dr. Octopus. In the Superior Spider-Man run, Dr. Octopus didn't just steal Peter's power, he stole his body and his whole life when he transferred his dying consciousness into Peter's body and trapped Peter in his sickened husk of a shell. Thus would begin an arc which, while some had railed against it, many found themselves enjoying, as Octavius decided to be a better Spider-Man than Peter ever had been and turned his life around. But of course, Peter wasn't really gone, and his consciousness began to manifest more and more in Otto's mind. And well, he should have been more horrified about how his friends and family were like, Peter seems legit. Nothing to see here. Moving on. I'm telling you, how could you go back to your friends if you were replaced by someone acting super sketch and no one noticed? It's a horror story, a nightmare, just devastating. Number 5. Arthur Petrelli. That's right, we're talking about Heroes. A series that most agree started off strong and then kind of tapered off. Arthur Petrelli's variability is to take powers from other post-humans, and this is no temporary transference. Once the power is taken, he cannot return it, it's his, and that person is left without them. And he's been using this ability to amass many powers and become a threat behind the scenes, a proper supervillain, as you do. He would end up faking his own death, and for a time he would only be able to communicate telepathically after a pretty severe injury. Didn't he take Peter's powers, you ask? Yes, he did, when he hugged him. But Peter would get his powers back when he injected himself with the formula. Arthur was going to perfect the formula and spread it to the world, which would have been disastrous. Heroes was a time. Number 4, the Reverse Flash, Speedforce. The Reverse Flash's entire existence is completely tied to the Flash's. Now, in both his pre- and post-crisis origins, Eobard Thawne recreated the Flash's powers, but it was in the post-crisis that he more stole than duplicated them. Eobard was from the 25th century, an obsessed fan who even went so far as to get plastic surgery to look like Barry Allen. He would use the cosmic treadmill to recreate the accident that created the Flash. He would then travel back in time to meet the Flash. But once he got there, he saw that he was destined to become the Reverse Flash, because Paradox City. All of this would push the already unstable Thawne over the edge, and he would come to hate Barry Allen and use his idol's own powers against him. But he would recognize the paradox, so he would fight Barry the only way he could, by making Barry's life as miserable as possible. And man, does he ever succeed. Number 3, Professor Ivo's robot, otherwise known as Amazo, which is an abbreviation of the android or Professor Ivo's android. This android is capable of duplicating the powers of the entire Justice League, even at times powers that aren't innate, like say for example the Green Lantern. He is said to be the first android and was built by the immortal Dr. Ivo, and he uses superior absorption powers to duplicate objects and, well, powers. At his peak, he can replicate more than one power at once, so he is a huge threat for the Justice League, and one that if possible it is best to send non-powered or meta individuals up against. This android has been around since the 60s and has had some intriguing adaptations. One of the most nuanced was actually in Justice League Unlimited, where it gained proper sentience and tried to discover its purpose in the universe. Number 2, Deathstroke steals the Speedforce. Slade Wilson would steal the Flash's powers to try to save his son by siphoning the Speedforce off of Kid Flash, because you know it comes off them like an energy and aura, and any aura can be harnessed. He also tries to steal Wally West's powers. This is so he can go back in time and prevent his son's death. He is able to harness this power thanks to a special suit called the Icon Suit, which can tap into the Speedforce by touching those who wield it. Wally actually agrees to help because Slade promises he'll live a good life and give up being Deathstroke, but really, he lied. He just wanted the power for himself, and he goes on an epic speed-fueled crime spree, and then he goes back to save his son. Priorities. That's how it goes when you're a villain dead. And number 1, All for One. Yep, back to My Hero Academia. Anime, and in the number 1 spot. What reality is this? An awesome one, that's what. The leader of the League of Villains, All for One has a unique quirk that has made him a threat for generations, and has ensured he is philosophically opposed to heroes wielding the opposing quirk One for All. He has lived apparently since the manifestation of quirks, or at least from a pretty early era, and has stolen many quirks. He can also combine the quirks he has stolen with devastating results. He is known by the world as the symbol of evil. Now he can actually redistribute the quirks he takes to others, he just does so rarely. And if he does, it is always for a purpose. All for One has battled all the holders of One for All, but seems to be grooming a successor to take his place, or well, for whatever he has planned. His whole face is just scar tissue, by the way, thanks to a battle with All Might. The parallels between All Might and All for One and their mentorship is fascinating. There are a lot of little elements that elevate My Hero for some above other shonen. I'm Sasha, and those were 10 villains who stole their powers from heroes. Tell us which of these villains is your fave down below, and also while you're down there, please like, share, comment, and subscribe so that you never miss an episode of Top 10 Nerd. See you again soon. Bye bye. His very power base. Slade Wilson would steal the Flash's powers to try to save his son, not to try his son. There are a lot of little elements that elevate My Hero for some above. There are a lot of little elements that elevate My Hero for some above other shonen.